After the death of Ramses XI, Egypt entered a period of marked decentralization. In the north, Smen's Eye, a powerful official in the Delta region, took advantage of the political vacuum and declared himself pharaoh, founding Dynasty XXI around 1069 BCE, with his capital at Tanis. However, his authority did not extend across all of Egypt. In the south, the city of Thebes remained under control of the high priest of Ammonius, who held dominion over the Karnak temple treasury, maintained their own military forces, and wielded immense influence in religious affairs. Thus began an era of dual power centers in Egypt, Tanis in the north and Thebes in the south, who cooperated under guise of national unity, yet quietly competed for influence. Smen's Eye is regarded as the architect of this dual structure. He did not launch grand military campaigns like the pharaohs of the New Kingdom, but instead focused on consolidating stability in the Delta. Under his rule, Egypt was no longer an expansionist empire, but closed kingdom, prioritizing internal order and maintaining a delicate balance with the Theban priesthood. 488. His most notable successor was Smen's Eye, 1047 to 1001 BCE. Though his reign did not stand out in terms of territorial expansion, he left behind a priceless archaeological legacy. His tomb at Tanis, discovered in the 1940s, is one of the few intact royal tombs ever found in Egypt. Unlike Tutankhamun's small but famous untouched tomb, Smen's burial shocked the world with its opulence: a golden death mask, a silver sarcophagus, a metal rarer than gold in Egypt, and countless other treasures. This indicates that although Egypt had declined politically and militarily, the Delta remained a fertile and wealthy region capable of amassing great riches. Under the kings of Tanis, Egypt transformed into a kingdom without imperial ambition. The pharaoh's power was now curtailed by nobles and priests. Thebes remained a parallel power center, where the high priests of Ammonius were buried in lavish tombs rivaling those of the pharaohs. The two regions of Egypt, north and south, were nominally unified, yet increasingly fractured beneath the surface, reflecting a nation no longer basking in the glory of the new kingdom, but gradually slipping into disintegration. When Dynasty XXI came to a close, Egypt entered a new era deeply influenced by foreign elements. Dynasty XXI, commonly known as the Libyan dynasty. It was founded by Shoshenq I, 945 to 924 BCE, a leader of Libyan descent who had been assimilated into Egyptian society over generations. He seized power in Bubastis in the eastern delta and proclaimed himself pharaoh. To assert his authority, Shoshenq launched a notable campaign into Canaan, reaching Jerusalem, an event recorded in the Bible under the name Shishak. At home, he strategically placed his relatives in key religious offices, including the powerful position of high priest Ammonius in Thebes, thus managing, for a brief period, to unify both North and South Egypt under his rule, a rare feat in this era of division. However, this balance did not last. His successor, Taklot I, 924 to 889 BCE, maintained power in the north but faced growing resistance from the south. In Thebes, the Ammonius priesthood, accustomed to independence, refused to accept interference from Bubastis. Thus, Egypt once again fell into division. The north ruled by Libyan kings, the south dominated by powerful priests. Amid this instability, the reign of Osorkon II, 872 to 837 BCE, is considered a rare moment of prosperity. Osorkon focused on political consolidation and monumental construction, building in both Bubastis and Karnak, expressing his desire to bridge the two regions through religion. His era was relatively free from war, instead marked by a flourishing of art and devotion. Reliefs carved at Karnak during his reign depict grand festivals and solemn rituals, reflecting the wealth and symbolic power of the king. But when Osorkon II died, stability faded with him. Power within the Libyan royal family fractured into multiple branches, each claiming the title of pharaoh over a specific region. Thebes, in turn, became increasingly independent, as the authority of the high priest of Ammonius surged once more, bringing Egypt back into a familiar state of fragmentation. Thus, the Libyan dynasty left behind a paradoxical legacy: moments of unity and strength under Shoshenq I and Osorkon II, yet also the seeds of disunity that paved the way for rising local dynasties. As Osorkon II's influence waned, Egypt no longer had a central power strong enough to hold the nation together. History then entered a uniquely chaotic phase. Dynasty XXII, 837 to 728 BC. This was not a single ruling house, but rather a collection of Libyan royal branches, each declaring themselves pharaoh in different regions. In Heracleopolis, Leontopolis, and Hermopolis, separate factions established their own mini-dynasties, complete with armies, taxation systems, and rituals. In the Delta, cities like Bubastis and Tanis still had Libyan rulers vying for dominance, while Thebes had all but become an independent theocracy, ruled by the high priest Ammonius, with power equal to that of any pharaoh. Egypt had splintered into a jigsaw puzzle of competing kings, all building temples and inscribing their names on monuments. Yet in reality, each controlled only a slice of territory. Amid this confusion, some figures still sought to reunify the land. Foremost among them was Tefnakt, a strong man from the city of Sais in the western Delta. He founded Dynasty Ziv 728 to 720 BCE with the ambition of restoring centralized rule. Tefnakt was not alone in his vision. He skillfully forged alliances across the Delta, creating a bloc capable of resisting internal rivals as well as a new threat from the south, the rising kingdom of Nubia, centered in Napata. For the first time in generations, Egypt saw a leader with the potential to unify its fractured provinces. But just as Tefnakt consolidated his power in the north, Nubia, under Pi, was preparing to cross the border, bringing a radically different chapter to Egyptian history. After a century of infighting between native and Libyan rulers, Egypt's story took a dramatic turn. From the south came a new unifying force, the Nubians, who had long absorbed Egyptian culture and religion. Now, they seized the opportunity to reunify Egypt. This marked the rise of Dynasty XXV, the Nubian dynasty, 747 to 664 BC, a short but profound era when Egypt was ruled by black pharaohs from Kush. It all began with Kashta, 747 to 735 BCE. Rather than marching in with swords, Kashta adopted a subtle strategy. He married his daughter into the powerful priesthood of Ammonius at Thebes, thereby gaining influence over the religious heart of Egypt. This soft power approach allowed Nubia to plant its roots in the south, paving the way for full conquest. The man who made that dream a reality was Pi, or Pianki, 744 to 714 BCE. Seeing the northern delta torn apart by rival Libyan rulers, Pi launched a swift military campaign. He crossed the Nile, defeated the Delta lords, and captured Memphis, Egypt's traditional political center. In a surviving victory stela, Pi boasted that it united the two lands beneath his feet, not just through force, but through the divine authority of Ammonius. For the first time in centuries, Egypt was reunited, but this time under Nubian rule. Under Shabaka, 714 to 705 BCE, Nubian power was further consolidated. He maintained political control and deliberately revived the spirit of the Old Kingdom. Shabaka's monuments reflected ancient artistic styles, and he even commissioned new copies of damaged religious texts, earning the Nubian dynasty the title of a classical Egyptian renaissance among modern scholars. Shabitku, 705 to 690 BCE, continued the Nubian legacy and held the country together. But he now faced a formidable challenge from the east, the rise of the Assyrian Empire. More than just a military threat, Assyria employed brutal strategies of conquest, signaling Egypt's entry into an age of international collision. The reign of Taharqa, 690 to 664 BC, marked both the peak and the unraveling of Nubian rule. He commissioned monumental works, ruled over a strong Egypt, and for a time even intervened in Canaan, Palestine to oppose the Assyrians. But this direct confrontation exhausted Egypt. The Assyrians invaded repeatedly, seized Memphis, and ravaged Thebes. Though Taharqa resisted with determination, Nubia could not withstand the full might of the Assyrian war machine. By 664 BCE, the Assyrians had crushed the Nubians, driving them back to Kush, permanently ending Dynasty XXV. After more than a century under control of Nubia and then Assyria, Egypt entered a brief period of revival under Dynasty XXVI, the Sate Dynasty, 664 to 525 BC, when Assyria defeated the Nubians and installed local rulers in Sais, a city in the Western Nile Delta. It initially appeared to be nothing more than a puppet regime, but from this foundation, a new line of kings seized a moment, revived Egypt and restored it, albeit briefly, to the map of regional powers. The founder of this renaissance was Psamtik I, 664 to 610 BC. At first merely a vassal of Assyria, he skillfully exploited the empire's decline, as it became embroiled with Babylon and Media, to gradually win full independence. Psamtik succeeded in reunifying the entire country for the first time after centuries of fragmentation, establishing his capital at Sais. Remarkably, he employed Greek mercenaries, a new phenomenon in Egyptian warfare. From this point onward, Greek forces became a familiar component of the Egyptian army, and Greek settlements gradually took root in the Delta, marking the beginning of a long-lasting Hellenic presence. In terms of religion and architecture, Psamtik restored many temples, asserted his legitimacy as a true successor of the Pharaohs, and elevated Sais as a new political and religious center. His son, Necho II, 610 to 595 BCE, became notable for his ambitions in maritime trade and public works. Necho launched a bold initiative, the construction of a canal linking the Nile to the Red Sea, a precursor to the modern Suez Canal. Though the project was never fully completed, it reflected a visionary understanding of Egypt's potential as a hub of maritime commerce. He also built a powerful navy, staffed in part by Greek sailors, in an effort to project Egyptian influence over Syria, Palestine. Necho is even mentioned in the Bible during the Battle of Megiddo, 609 BCE, where King Josiah Judah was killed resisting the Egyptian army. For Egypt, this moment marked a brief return to the Near Eastern stage, but only for a fleeting time. After Necho, the throne passed to Psamtik II, 595 to 589 BCE. Though his reign was short, he made a significant impact by launching a military campaign into Nubia, destroying the monuments of former enemies to reaffirm Egyptian dominance. He also maintained extensive trade networks, continued employing Greek mercenaries, and secured vital commercial routes. His successor, Apries, 589 to 570 BCE, endured a tumultuous reign. He intervened in Canaan to challenge Babylon, but suffered a crushing defeat, severely damaging his legitimacy. Domestic uprisings followed, ultimately leading to his overthrow. Apries serves as a prime example of how a pharaoh's authority during this period depended heavily on international diplomacy and military success, and how a single failure could topple a ruler. After years of instability, the Sate dynasty reached its peak under Ahmesis II, 570 to 526 BC, one of the most remarkable pharaohs of Egypt's later history. Of commoner origin, Ahmesis was elevated to the throne by the military after the deposition of Apries. Ironically, his lack of noble blood helped him gain widespread popular support. He ruled for over 40 years, transforming Egypt into one of the wealthiest and most prosperous nations in the Mediterranean world. Ahmesis stood out for his open foreign policy, particularly toward the Greeks. He not only employed Greek mercenaries and sailors, but also granted them the city of Naucratis in the Nile Delta, a Greek-exclusive trading port within Egypt. Thanks to this, Naucratis quickly became a hub of international exchange, where goods from the Mediterranean and the Nile converged. Under Ahmesis II, Egypt was enveloped in an early atmosphere of globalization. Greek merchants, Levantine artisans, and native Egyptians coexisted in bustling urban centers. Domestically, Ahmesis promoted a movement of traditional revival. The art and architecture of his time strongly echoed Old Kingdom aesthetics. Statues bore a solid, proud form reminiscent of the pharaohs of Giza. Ahmesis undertook the restoration of numerous temples in Memphis, Sais, and especially Karnak, as if to assert himself as a protector of Ma'at, the cosmic order, after centuries of decline. Toward the end of the Sate dynasty, as Ahmesis II aged, the international stage grew tense. To the east, the Persian Empire rose under Cambyses II, who had just inherited the throne from Cyrus the Great. To legitimize his ambitions of advancing toward the Nile, Cambyses sent envoys to Egypt to request the hand of Pharaoh Amesis's daughter in marriage. Amesis, seasoned and shrewd, knew he could not refuse outright, but still sought to save face. So he devised a deception. Rather than send his own daughter, he dispatched Nitys, the daughter of Apries, the former king whom Amesis had overthrown. But the scheme quickly backfired. Upon arriving in Persia, Nitys boldly revealed her true identity and recounted the humiliation her family had suffered at Amesis's hands. Her words served as fuel to Cambyses' burning ambitions. He perceived the deception as a grave insult, one that demanded vengeance. Thus, a diplomatic proposal turned into a casus belli. When Amesis II died in 526 BCE, the throne passed to his son, Psamtik III, 526 to 525 BC. But the young pharaoh barely had a chance to rule. Just a year after his accession, he faced an invasion by Persian forces. In the Battle of Pelusium, 525 BCE, the Egyptian army was decisively defeated. Psamtik was captured and later executed. With this crushing defeat, Dynasty XXVI came to an end, and Egypt, for the first time, became a province under a foreign empire, the Persian Achaemenid Empire. Cambyses II, successor to Cyrus, not only conquered Memphis, but also transformed the entire Nile Valley into a satrapy or Persian administrative province. Egyptians retained their priests and civil officials, but ultimate authority lay in the hands of a Persian satrap, based in Memphis. Cambyses is remembered through contradictory accounts. Some sources describe him as respectful of Egypt's gods, while others claim he desecrated temples and even slaughtered the sacred Apis bull. Whatever the truth, his reign left a deep and bitter imprint on the Egyptian memory. After Cambyses, the throne passed to Darius I, 522 to 486 BCE, whose reign brought a markedly different tone. Unlike his predecessor, Darius focused on efficient administration. He commissioned major infrastructure projects, including irrigation systems, dikes, and most notably, the continuation of the canal connecting the Nile to the Red Sea, a grand endeavor linking Egyptian trade to the Persian Gulf. During his rule, many temples were restored and had inscriptions carved in multiple languages, Old Persian, Elamite, Babylonian, and Egyptian hieroglyphs, to assert his multicultural authority. Though now a vassal state, Egypt remained a vital commercial node in the vast Persian Empire. Under Xerxes I, 486 to 465 BCE, imperial policies shifted decisively. Xerxes, famous for his Greek campaigns, paid little attention to appeasing the Egyptians. He increased taxes, brutally suppressed local uprisings, and diminished the authority of the Ammonius priesthood. In Egyptian eyes, these acts were an unbearable humiliation. As a result, for nearly a century afterward, the region saw a series of uprisings, each of which was crushed by the Persians. Egypt remained shackled in the status of a subject province. It was not until 404 BCE that a new opportunity emerged. Amartius, a native leader from Sais, led a successful revolt that expelled the Persians. He founded the 28th dynasty, but he would be its only pharaoh. During his brief reign, Amartius is remembered less for architectural legacies and more for the victory of liberation. His court failed to consolidate power, plagued by internal divisions, and after his death, Egypt once again fell into the hands of competing factions. Yet Amartius' name lived on in Egyptian memory as the only native king to rise up and, for a fleeting moment, restore national independence. Following Amartius' death, Egypt entered the era of the 29th dynasty, 399 to 380 BC. Headquartered at Mendes, this was a period marked by continued resistance against the looming Persian threat. Pharaohs such as Nepherites I, Haker, and Nepherites II are remembered not for grand temples, but for tense military and diplomatic campaigns. They actively sought allies in the Greek world, sometimes with Athens, sometimes with Sparta, to form a balance of power against the mighty Persian Empire. These alliances placed Egypt within the framework of international diplomacy, but also highlighted that the Nile Kingdom no longer held the absolute strength of the New Kingdom era. With the rise of the 30th dynasty, 380 to 343 BC, Egypt experienced a brief but remarkable revival. its founder, Nectanebo I, successfully repelled the Persians, regaining a precious window of independence. During his reign, Egypt regained confidence by launching a wave of temple construction across the land. In Karnak, Luxor, and especially Philae, which became a magnificent center of Isis worship. Nectanebo I is regarded as the last native king to elevate Egyptian religious architecture to such influential heights, leaving a lasting imprint on the cultural landscape. After Nectanebo I, his son Pharaohs ascended the throne 362 to 360 BC. Ambitious and bold, Pharaohs planned a large-scale military campaign against Persia, even enlisting Greek military support. However, his overconfidence and tax hikes to fund the war alienated the nobility, leading to his overthrow. His successor was Nectanebo II, 360 to 343 BC, one of the most remembered of Egypt's final native kings. Nectanebo II was not only a resilient warrior, but also a monumental builder. Some of the last major religious structures of ancient Egypt are attributed to him, from Isis temples at Philae to projects at Karnak and Hermopolis. Yet even he could not withstand the might of Persia under Artaxerxes III. Defeated and exiled to Nubia, Nectanebo II became the last native pharaoh, bringing an end to over 3 millennia of Egyptian rule by Egyptians. From that point on, the 31st dynasty, 343 to 332 BC, known as the Second Persian period, reduced Egypt to a fully subjugated province. This era is remembered by Egyptians as one of harsh oppression. Temple funding was slashed, taxes were raised, and the Persian military ruled with an iron fist. Numerous uprisings broke out, but were swiftly suppressed. The climax came in 332 BC, when Alexander the Great entered Egypt. The people welcomed him as a liberator, ending Persian rule and opening the door to the Hellenistic, Ptolemaic era. In the grand view, the late period, 664 to 332 BC, was a time in which Egypt constantly oscillated between native independence and foreign domination. Politically, the country was perpetually on the defensive, at times relying on alliances with the Greeks, at others caught in the vortex of Persian imperial ambitions. Culturally, the era witnessed a classical revival. Many temples were rebuilt, and the artistic styles of the Old Kingdom were resurrected as a statement of national identity. Religiously, the gods Ammonius and Isis remained central, yet Hellenic influences began to appear subtly. The syncretism of deities, such as Zeus Ammonius, laid the foundation for Greco-Egyptian religious landscape that would flourish under the Ptolemaic dynasty. This was a period both tragic and transitional. Egypt remained rich in cultural identity, but had lost the strength to sustain its imperial glory of old. Modern Egypt is no longer the mighty empire once ruled by pharaohs, yet the legacy of over 3 millennia is still vividly present in every inch of its land. The pyramids of Giza, the Great Sphinx, the temples of Karnak, Luxor, Abu Simbel, and the Valley of the Kings in Thebes still stand tall, drawing millions of visitors each year and serving as immortal symbols of Nile River civilization. Today's Egyptians live in a country shaped by both Islamic-era traditions and the glorious memory of their ancestors, with Cairo serving as a vibrant capital that blends the modern and the ancient. Despite countless conquests and upheavals, Egypt has preserved a vital role in the politics of the Middle East and North Africa, both as a modern nation and as a bridge that connects the world to a distant past where pharaohs once reigned. This is Egypt's enduring uniqueness, a country living in the present, yet forever rooted in its mythic heritage.